Being broke doesn't mean you failed as a person. It means your brain might be operating under a level of pressure that distorts your decisions, focus, and vision for the future. The uncomfortable truth is that scarcity doesn't just affect your wallet, it changes the way you think, choose, and react. And while no one explains this to you, you blame yourself for not being able to move forward. When money is tight, the mind goes into survival mode. Everything becomes urgent, short-term thinking takes over, and planning feels pointless or even dangerous. Not because you're weak, but because your brain prioritizes putting out fires instead of building for tomorrow. This invisible cycle keeps smart people stuck for years without them ever realizing the real reason why. What almost no one tells you is that getting out of being broke doesn't start with making more money, it starts with regaining cognitive control. Understanding how the psychology of scarcity works completely changes the way you view your financial mistakes, your habits, and even your beliefs about money. From that point on, decisions that once seemed impossible start to make sense. In today's video, you're going to learn what science reveals about poverty, mindset, and decision-making, and how to use that knowledge to shift out of survival mode and start building wealth strategically. Stick around until the end, because what you're going to realize will change the way you see yourself, and that changes everything. 1. Why being broke isn't a character flaw. Most people grow up hearing that being broke is a sign of laziness or lack of discipline, and that idea sticks deep in the mind. Think about it for a second. If it were just about character, why do so many intelligent and hardworking people go through tough financial times? The interesting thing is that science points in a completely different direction, one that's far less moral and far more neurological. When money is scarce, the brain enters a state of constant pressure, like it's always putting out fires. And in that state, it's not willpower calling the shots, it's survival. A classic study conducted by researchers from Princeton and Harvard revealed something uncomfortable, but freeing. They analyzed adults living under financial scarcity and compared their cognitive performance in tasks involving planning and focus. The method included memory tests, attention challenges, and decision-making under simulated financial pressure. The result was clear. Scarcity temporarily reduced cognitive capacity, sometimes to the same extent as losing an entire night of sleep. It wasn't a character flaw, it was mental limitation caused by continuous stress. That explains why, when someone is broke, thinking long-term feels nearly impossible. The mind is too busy dealing with the now, bills, emergencies, small risks of the next day. Planning 5 years ahead, investing calmly, or building a safety net requires mental space that simply isn't available in that state. It's like trying to play chess while someone's yelling in your ear nonstop. Most people blame themselves for not being able to think big, not realizing their brain is operating at the limit. And that guilt only deepens the cycle. Big stories of financial recovery almost always start at this invisible point. People who've gone through bankruptcy, deep debt, or periods of extreme scarcity rarely just woke up disciplined overnight. They first got out of survival mode, even if just through small stabilizations, before any major turnaround. When the pressure drops, clarity returns, and decisions change naturally. What looked like a mindset shift was really the mind finally catching its breath. Change starts when the brain stops fighting just to survive. So if you're broke right now, face it with emotional maturity. This doesn't define who you are, nor your potential, nor your financial future. It only defines the temporary mental state you've been pushed into by scarcity. The financial elite understands this, which is why they avoid major decisions under extreme pressure. The first step isn't self-judgment, it's regaining cognitive control. Once your mind clears, the path to better decisions starts to appear. 2. The scarcity mindset, what it is and how it traps you. There's a quiet mental pattern that keeps people stuck even when they're trying their hardest, and most don't even realize when they've fallen into it. The scarcity mindset is born when the brain learns that something is always missing: time, money, or security. From that point on, everything feels urgent and nothing feels strategic. The mind starts operating like someone who's drowning, focused only on the next breath. In that state, there's no long-term vision, only reaction. The critical point is that this mindset doesn't develop because a person is weak, but because their environment trained the brain to think that way. When income is unstable or bills are always right on the edge, focus narrows automatically. The mind starts to value immediate decisions, even if they come with high long-term costs. That's why so many intelligent people make financial choices that, from the outside, seem illogical. On the inside, they make perfect sense to someone who feels like they can't afford to mess up today. This is where an important contrast appears. one that separates those who stay stuck from those who begin to break free. When someone feels poor, their thinking becomes concrete, short-term, and defensive. The future feels too abstract to deserve real attention. But someone with even a minimal sense of mental security can think in terms of probabilities, strategies, and consequences. It's not about being rich. It's about not being in a constant state of threat. The elite understand that clear thinking requires calm, not pressure. Now take a look at 3 clear signs that you may be caught in this cycle without even realizing it. First, every decision is based on relieving immediate discomfort, even if it creates problems later. Second, planning for the future feels exhausting or pointless, almost like a waste of time. Third, any unexpected expense triggers disproportionate anxiety, as if everything is about to collapse. These aren't moral flaws, they're mental warning signals. Breaking this cycle starts with small disruptions to the pattern, not big promises. The brain needs proof that not everything is urgent, and not everything is a threat. Creating a small sense of control, even if tiny, already starts to shift things. It could be setting aside a symbolic amount of money, making a conscious decision to delay something, or simply pausing before reacting. That pause is where logic gets a chance to breathe. When you understand the scarcity mindset, something shifts internally. Guilt starts to fade, and clarity takes its place. You stop fighting against yourself and start working with how your mind actually functions. Few people ever realize this, but those who do gain an immediate psychological advantage. From here on, the game is no longer about surviving. It's about building. 3. The psychology behind the financial decisions that break you. There's a theory in behavioral psychology that completely changes how you see your financial mistakes. Scarcity theory shows that poverty isn't just about a lack of money, it's a constant cognitive load. When resources are scarce, the mind works like an overloaded system. It prioritizes what hurts now and ignores what matters later. And this happens even in smart, disciplined, and well-intentioned people. Under financial stress, poor decisions aren't a sign of irrationality, they're a form of adaptation. Delaying goals, overspending, or avoiding planning altogether becomes a logical response within that mental context. The brain is trying to reduce immediate pain, not maximize long-term outcomes. It's like someone running from visible danger without time to read a map. The problem isn't the isolated decision, it's the ongoing mental state in which that decision is made. Think of someone who avoids checking their bank account or runs from spreadsheets and numbers. From the outside, it may look like irresponsibility, but on the inside, it's emotional self-protection. Looking at cold data requires calm, clarity, and a margin of psychological safety. When the mind is under pressure, it would rather deny than confirm a threat. This behavior doesn't solve the problem, but it does relieve anxiety in the moment. And the brain learns that shortcut quickly. Another key point is overspending, something many people misunderstand. In a scarcity state, small emotional rewards carry huge weight. An impulsive purchase isn't luxury, it's temporary anesthesia against the feeling of failure or fear. The mind trades the future for immediate relief because the future feels too distant to be real. This pattern repeats until it becomes automatic. Here's a simple but powerful exercise to break that cycle. Start separating self-sabotaging decisions from high-impact decisions. Self-sabotaging decisions provide short-term relief, but long-term cost, like unnecessary installments or putting off organization. High-impact decisions might sting a little now, but create mental space in the future. It's not about financial value, it's about the accumulated psychological effect. Once you start classifying your decisions this way, something shifts in your inner control. Guilt starts to fade, and logic takes the wheel. You begin to understand why you did what you did, instead of beating yourself up for it. This level of self-awareness is rare, but it's exactly what comes before real growth. Those who master this stop repeating the past and start building with intention. For money beliefs that keep you broke. Before any spreadsheet, side income, or investment, there's an invisible filter that determines what you do with money. That filter is the set of beliefs you've carried since early on, many of them inherited without question. Phrases like money changes people or rich people are greedy may seem harmless, but they shape your decisions every day. The mind avoids what it associates with something negative, even if you consciously say you want to succeed. Internally, there's a silent conflict. The psychology of money shows that we don't just seek to earn more, we seek internal coherence. If, deep down, you believe money corrupts, then financial growth feels like a threat to your identity. Studies and insights analyzed by financial psychologists and authors like Morgan Housel in the book The Psychology of Money show that financial behavior is more emotional than logical. People don't do what they know is right. They do what protects their self-image. And that explains why so many sabotage their own growth without realizing it. Real stories make this even clearer. People who grew up hearing that those with money step on others often reject opportunities or quickly gain and lose everything. When those beliefs are questioned and reframed, behavior changes almost automatically. It's not magic, it's internal alignment. Money stops being seen as a threat and starts being viewed as a tool. External change begins when the internal narrative shifts. Now take a look at 5 common beliefs that keep a lot of people broke without them realizing it. First, associating money with guilt or shame. Second, believing wealth requires extreme luck or rare talent. Third, thinking that wanting more is a sign of greed. Fourth, believing you weren't born for this. And fifth, treating money as something always scarce and unstable. None of these are facts, they're repeated stories. Reprogramming these beliefs doesn't require empty affirmations, it requires conscious replacement. Where you once thought money is dirty, you begin to see money amplifies who I already am. Where you saw luck, you start to see process. Where there was guilt, responsibility takes its place. This shift changes the tone of your daily decisions, not just the big ones. The mind starts allowing growth without triggering self-sabotage. When you understand that beliefs shape behavior, something powerful happens. You stop fighting against results and begin revisiting the root cause. The financial elite does this early, often through mentors or strategic therapy. Those who never re-examine their beliefs repeat the same cycles, even if they earn more. Those who do, change the pattern and sustain growth. At this point, money stops being the enemy and becomes an ally. 5, the less you have, the harder it is to think about the future. There's a rarely discussed, but incredibly powerful psychological phenomenon that explains why so many people stay stuck financially, even while trying to do the right thing. When someone lives in scarcity, the brain almost automatically prioritizes immediate needs. This isn't laziness or lack of ambition, it's a survival-based adaptation. The mind learns that now is more urgent than any distant plan. And the more pressure you're under, the less capacity you have to think ahead. Research in cognitive psychology shows that people under financial scarcity have their mental focus consumed by basic worries. Bills, deadlines, and immediate risks take up cognitive space, like apps running in the background. There's little energy left for strategic decisions, learning, or planning. It's not that the person doesn't want to think about the future, it's that their brain doesn't have the bandwidth. Planning requires calm, and calm requires a minimum level of security. This is where a major shift in perspective can change how you view financial failures. Planning doesn't fail because you're weak or disorganized. It fails because your mind is too busy trying to hold everything together. It's like asking someone to build a house while they're holding up the ceiling to keep it from collapsing. The financial elite understands this instinctively and avoids making major decisions under extreme stress. First, they stabilize. Then, they build. The problem is, many people try to force planning at the worst possible moment. They open spreadsheets while anxious, make promises while exhausted, and set goals when scared. The brain starts to associate planning with pain and begins to avoid it. This creates a cycle where the future becomes synonymous with frustration. Little by little, the person starts living only in the short term without noticing. A practical way to free up cognitive space starts with a simple mini mental routine. First, reduce unnecessary decisions. The fewer small choices you have to make, the more energy you save. Second, create a minimal safety floor, even if symbolic, so your brain stops going into constant alert mode. Third, define just one future focus point, not 10 goals. Clarity reduces mental load. When the brain exits survival mode, something shifts almost immediately. The future stops feeling like an abstract threat and starts to look like a field of possibilities. Small decisions begin to make sense again. This is the point where real growth becomes possible, not because life is perfect, but because the mind finally has space to think. 6. Shifting to an abundance mindset without illusion. When people talk about an abundance mindset, many immediately think of magical thinking or empty optimism, and that turns off intelligent people. Abundance isn't about believing money falls from the sky. It's about training the brain to see possibilities beyond immediate pressure. It's about leaving reactive mode and entering strategic mode, even if starting small. The financial elite doesn't fantasize, they calculate calmly. Abundance is perspective over time, not illusion. From a psychological standpoint, abundance is tied to how the brain represents the future. Research from universities like Stanford shows that when people feel relatively safe, even just a little, they begin to think in more abstract, long-term ways. The study involved decision-making tests comparing people under pressure with people who felt a sense of control. Those who felt less immediate threat evaluated risks and benefits more effectively. The money didn't change, the mental state did. Here's the part most people miss. You don't need total abundance to think with abundance. You just need to reduce the constant feeling of scarcity. The mind doesn't need wealth, it needs minimal predictability. Once that's in place, decisions shift from impulsive to intentional. The future starts to factor in naturally, without forced effort. The practical difference shows up in the kind of questions you ask yourself. In scarcity, the question is, how do I survive this right now? In trained abundance, the question becomes, what choice today helps me of 6 months from now? It's not a massive leap, it's a shift in focus. And that shift changes your behavior patterns over time. Small decisions begin to align. Here's a simple exercise to help reprogram your focus from short-term to long-term. First, ask, does this solve a real problem or just relieve emotional discomfort? Second, question, would I make this same decision if I were calm? Third, think, which version of me is this choice feeding? These questions train the brain to pause before reacting. Over time, this practice creates a new mental pattern. The mind starts seeking solutions instead of quick escapes. The sense of control grows, even before the money does. This is how abundance truly begins quietly and rationally. Those who understand this stop waiting for perfect conditions and start building with clarity. 7 daily habits that financially stable people already practice. There's something almost no one notices when they look at financially stable people. It's not big salaries or strokes of luck, it's small habits repeated with consistency. Financial psychologists show that chronic poverty is more connected to daily patterns than isolated events. Interestingly, these habits don't seem impressive at first glance. That's exactly why most people overlook them. The elite sticks to the simple things that work. A common pattern among stable individuals is reducing chaos before trying to grow. They organize the basics so they're not constantly putting out fires. Automated payments, clear limits, and pre-planned decisions reduce mental load. This frees up cognitive energy for better choices. People living in constant improvisation rarely think clearly. Stability starts in your environment, not your bank account. Another essential habit is treating money as a system, not as an emotion. Stable people don't decide in the heat of the moment, they follow preset rules. It's not coldness, it's protection against impulses. They understand the brain fails under stress and build structures to prevent predictable mistakes. Simple rules beat willpower. This principle is repeated among low-profile millionaires. To build a financial habit in 7 days, your focus needs to be ridiculously simple. Choose one small action that can be done daily with no effort, like tracking expenses or setting aside a symbolic amount. Do it at the same time every day to create predictability. Don't increase complexity until the habit is solid. The brain learns through repetition, not intensity. Consistency beats motivation. The contrast between those living paycheck to paycheck and those building a financial cushion lies in invisible behavior. One group reacts when problems arise, the other anticipates. Those building a cushion don't wait for money left over. They define and advance what stays. This creates a sense of control even with little money. Control generates calm, and calm leads to better decisions. That's when the cycle starts to reverse. As these habits accumulate, something shifts in the mental pattern. Money stops being a constant threat and becomes a manageable variable. The person starts trusting themselves more and relying less on external solutions. This is the kind of quiet confidence the financial elite develops early. It's not glamour, it's discipline applied intelligently. And that's what sustains long-term stability. 8. How to use the Matthew effect in your favor. There's a principle rarely discussed outside of academia, but widely used in practice by the financial elite, called the Matthew effect. It describes a simple and brutal logic. Those who have advantages accumulate more advantages, and those who don't lose even more. It may seem unfair, but it's real, and ignoring it only puts you at a disadvantage. The good news is that this effect doesn't start big, it starts small. And that's exactly why it can be reversed. In practice, the Matthew effect explains why a bit of stability creates more opportunities. Someone with even a small emergency fund sleeps better, makes better decisions, and makes fewer mistakes. Someone living on the edge decides under pressure and pays higher emotional and financial interest. The system doesn't reward isolated effort, it rewards consistency. The elite understands that the game is about accumulation, not explosion. Few people catch on to this early. A common mistake is thinking the Matthew effect only works when you're earning a lot of money. In truth, it responds more to consistency than to the starting amount. Saving 1% of your income may seem financially insignificant, but it's psychologically massive. That small gesture creates the identity of a builder, not a survivor. Your mind starts to operate on a different pattern, and pattern is what drives results. Small financial wins function like mental compound interest. 1 month of control builds confidence, which leads to better decisions the next month. Better decisions reduce mistakes, and fewer mistakes increase your margin. Margin creates choices, and choices create advantage. The cycle quietly turns in your favor. This is how the elite builds distance over time. A simple 30-day plan can activate this mechanism. In the first week, focus on stopping obvious money leaks, not optimizing everything. In the second, create a symbolic micro-reserve to get your brain out of emergency mode. In the third, cut back on one recurring impulsive decision. In the fourth, review what worked and repeat. Nothing heroic, just strategic. When you use the Matthew effect consciously, the game changes pace. You stop trying to flip the table and start tilting the board. Every small step counts more than it seems at the time. Most people quit because they underestimate the power of accumulation. Those who understand it build quiet advantage. And advantage, when used wisely, grows on its own. 9. A 3-step plan to get out of survival mode and start building wealth. Once you understand the psychology behind scarcity, the next step is to take action without slipping into fantasy. Financially stable people don't do everything at once, they follow a sequence. This 3-step plan respects how the mind works under pressure. It doesn't require extreme motivation, it requires applied logic. The idea is to get out of chaos before trying to grow. Without a foundation, any progress will collapse. The first step is stabilization, and this is more mental than mathematical. Stabilizing means organizing your debts, stopping obvious money leaks, and reducing unnecessary decisions. It's not about paying everything off all at once. It's about stopping the bleeding. A simple weekly routine already creates a sense of control. Control reduces anxiety, and anxiety reduces error. That's the real initial gain. The second step is reprogramming beliefs that silently sabotage your decisions. The focus here isn't positive thinking, it's internal consistency. You start questioning automatic narratives like, there's never anything left, or I'm bad with money. Each belief you revise changes your micro-decisions. And those accumulated micro-decisions change your results. It's inner work with outer impact. The third step is building the future realistically, not idealistically. Planning here isn't a distant dream, it's a simple roadmap. Goals for 3, 6, and 12 months create a horizon without overwhelming the brain. The goal isn't to predict everything, it's to set direction. Direction reduces impulsiveness, and less impulsiveness protects what you're building. The most common mistake is trying to skip steps out of anxiety. Broke people want to speed things up because they feel behind, but that only reinforces the cycle. The financial elite respects the process because they understand risk. Each step strengthens the next. Those who stabilize well think better. Those who think better plan better. Those who plan better grow. There is no sustainable shortcut. When this plan is followed calmly, something shifts in your mental pattern. Money stops being an unpredictable enemy and becomes a manageable system. Confidence grows not because everything is solved, but because there's clear direction. That's the point where wealth building truly begins. Not with urgency, but with control.